All right, folks. I am real lucky to be in the studio with my friend Joe MacPhail of SunSp.t, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our interview. So, good morning, Joe. How's it going?
Good morning. It's going good.
You got here bright and early at the time I intended, and I had to go home because I wasn't ready.
That's right. That's technology for you. That's what I always say.
Yeah. But thanks for meeting me.
Totally.
So what do you have in store for us today?
Today I'm going to do some piano stuff, I guess. With my SunSp.t project, I do a kind of mix of songwriter stuff, of like production-oriented stuff. And this year I'm going more into piano. Then there's a future EP release that's going to have some solo pianos, and so I'm going to kind of preempt that.
Okay.
With some solo piano performance in the studio.
Sweet. So as opposed to more of like a full band sound within, like the piano is the only instrument on the tune?
Yeah. Because I perform live with my SunSp.t thing. I have a beat machine where I can cue up tracks and drum grooves. I do vocals and the piano, and I have a synth. So it's kind of this multi-keyboard situation.
Okay.
And so this is my quote-unquote MTV Unplugged acoustic version of things. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm curious why that changed, but I guess first, can you tell me about what SunSp.t is and maybe a little about how you started doing this solo project?
Sure. SunSp.t, which is spelled SunSp.t, because there was some band in the 80s that had an O. And
Jerks.
Yeah, and I didn't want to get in legal trouble, I guess.
Sure.
Anyways, it's my solo project, and my idea is that it's kind of a gallery of my works.
Okay.
I've played in a bunch of bands, still am in a bunch of bands. And so this project is for me to get out all of my ideas so that they don't infiltrate the sound of my bands.
I see.
I kind of learned that when you're playing in a band and you don't have your own way of getting things out, you end up asserting what you want to do in the band sound. But often it doesn't work out in a particular song.
Doesn't serve the band necessarily.
That doesn't necessarily serve the band, doesn't necessarily serve the song. And so I created my own selfish imprint.
Yeah. Was that self-recognized, or were you having people in groups you were playing with be like, Joe, that's cool, but like that's not what we're doing right now?
I think it was self-recognized.
Okay.
And it came from, I feel like in your early 20s, you try and play and do everything. And then I started doing studio work and developed a philosophy of you're only going to use 1 to 3% of your entire skill set on any particular song in the studio. It's like a very fine line, but then you have to make that 1 to 3% feel like 100% with kind of intention. And that philosophy carried back over into bands and songwriter stuff in a live context.
So sort of reflecting that you didn't need to show all of your chops on every single song.
Basically,
but the chops you did show needed to really fit.
Yeah, and even in a live context, it can be more fun to show your chops once or twice and kind of blow everyone's minds for a second, and then revert back to, kind of being serving the song, serving the leader.
Being in the mix.
Totally.
That's a really cool philosophy. Okay, so SunSp.t evolved out of a need to get that 97% somewhere to breathe.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And even in that, I've started minimalizing a little bit, but I had to get it all out. There was a record called ArtAttack. I have very bizarre names, very bad SEO recognizability. So first it was ArtAttack.
Well, and not even to mention you have a period in your name.
I know. It's a disaster.
That's doing wonders.
Yeah. It was ArtAttack was the watercolor kind of collage-y piano thing.
Okay.
It was all of the angsty college sad songs.
Yes.
Essentially. Had to get those out
Gotta
first.
channel the angst.
Yeah. Then there was Psychical. Once again, who's going to search Psychical in SEO? But that is the full band, I'm playing drums, I'm doing Moog bass, I have 4 keyboards on every song.
Okay.
That's the full-on situation. And then pandemic happened, and then I'm not trying to do a drum kit as much, and it turned into the Jofi series, which is more of this production, I call it fake drums, but it's just and I also call these beat type compositions because they're not hip hop beats. They're kind of jazz, improv, compositional, some sort of weird hybrid in between. Because I'm through playing most of the songs instead of it looping.
Right. Okay.
And
so but are you? So what do you mean by that? Are you like making a loop and then live looping it, or
no? I'm like playing a track down on one keyboard, and then I'm playing the drums on the computer ADSR or whatever the actual QWERTY keyboard. Using the whatever that or a MIDI keyboard.
Okay.
Just playing the drums down. Usually not looping it, usually just getting a good performance, and then playing the bass down and kind of through playing everything.
I see.
So I can't call it a hip hop thing because that's so loop based.
Right, yeah.
So it's this weird in between. But anyways, that was the Jofi series.
And there's Jofi 1 and Jofi 2.
Exactly. It was supposed to be a double EP, and then the second one was 11 songs. So you can't really call that an EP.
But is it LP? Or is it in between P?
We know that there's a P in there somewhere. I'm not sure if it's an E and L or
Okay, cool. So Jofi 1 and Jofi 2 spawned out of the pandemic. Was there something about the pandemic that made you want to shift gears? Or was it just like you happened to be ready to do something different?
I think there was something about the insularity of just like being in a room.
Yeah.
That then I almost wanted to go, and also living in the internet. Because it was what I called internet society for a while, where everybody was kind of living their lives through the computer.
Right.
And so then my creation process also happened through the computer. And it was actually kind of bad for my eyesight after a while.
Oh, yeah. You got to get those blue light filtering glasses.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Do you have other work besides music?
I do music and no.
Yeah, okay.
But it's always been... Well, there's different ways of doing music, where it's the teaching, the studio.
Sure.
There was some nonprofits I worked with doing like piano for dance classes. It's always some crazy mix. I've been getting into sound work recently as well.
But all music.
Music derived, yeah.
Music derived, yeah. That's really awesome. I think I was just going to ask if you also had a computer job during the pandemic that you were, straining at, and then your time off, you're like straining at a computer. But
no, I was fortunate. There was the whole contract worker thing, for the first year.
Yeah.
And so I was really able to like create.
That's so amazing.
In more of an organic way. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, why don't I show my mouth and you show us some of your music you've been working on? Do you want to share anything to sort of preempt?
I guess I'll play a Jofi 1 composition that I never named it. It's just called 3/29/20, which is the date I made it.
I remember listening to that and being like, what happened on this day? Did you just record that song that day?
Yeah, I'm in a band called XOXOK.
Oh, yeah.
And there is this song called All In that's kind of a ballad. And I wanted to I'm a drummer in that band, so I wanted to do my Chris Dave groove thing. And then eventually it didn't end up serving the song, and so I had to kind of let go of the weird offbeats. And so I basically created this song with that energy.
You're like, here's what I wanted to put there. Yeah,
kind of.
We actually had Keenan on the show, I think it was pre-Pandy back in the day. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know you were drumming with him.
Yeah, totally.
That's rad. Cool. All right, well, I'm excited to hear 3/29/20. Wow, that was rad. Dang, that was like one of those chord changes at the end made me.
Yeah, I always
Yeah.
got to add the little intro and the outro. I feel like in the live, yeah.
That was really lovely. I'm glad you introed that with, even though you were performing that just on the piano, I wrote this song to get something out of me based on a drummer's sort of writing and a drummer's sort of urge, because you can hear that syncopation.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, literally in your playing, but also in the spaces outside of it. Yeah, that was really cool.
Good.
So if you're just tuning in, I'm in the studio. This is WXDU Durham, 88.7. I'm in the studio with Joe MacPhail of SunSp.t, and it's just getting started, folks. So can you tell me about your history as a musician? You've already named that you play piano. Well, you've literally shown us. So we know that's not a lie. You mentioned drums. You mentioned, well, I think maybe those are the only two, but I gather you play basically all the things.
Kind of. Piano and drums are the big ones.
Those are the big ones. Okay.
My dad is a blues guitarist, Richard MacPhail.
Oh,
who actually he was a Duke professor.
Really?
But yeah.
No way. In music?
Not in music, but in chemistry. But he was always a musician and has this band, Joe Bell and the Stinging Blades.
Wait, Joe Bell?
Joe Bell.
Joe Bell. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Stinging Blades.
That's a rockin' name.
It is a rockin' name. It's a rockin' band. Yeah,
Sweet.
yeah. They're still
and,
playing.
And in Durham? Or
in like the kind of like the lead singer lives in Pittsburgh, so it's kind of the Chatham to Durham zone.
Check them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of guitar sort of through Dad.
Well, and so there's a big guitar influence, and so I can play and I can play a little bit of guitar. I'm a little better at bass than guitar, but I'm better at keyboard bass than I am at both of those instruments.
Sure. Yeah.
So I went about this all the wrong way.
No, you're good. We're chatting.
I started with classical lessons, and then with the blues guitar influence, started teaching myself blues on the piano.
Okay.
And then got to jazz later on and had to find a way to mix the classical and the blues and kind of learn more of the jazz vocabulary.
Okay. What age are you when you're discovering jazz?
I'd listened to jazz earlier in life, but I'm probably like 16, 17 when I'm getting into it more
like
of a real way.
I wanna do this myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's also kind of the world shifted. The way that music sounds shifted from a blues basis to kind of a jazz and hip hop basis. And so it was also, moving with music and with, like Hiatus Coyote and Anderson .Paak and all of these. That was a little later, but
yeah. There has been that shift in like what is, I don't know how you would describe that as like, it's not pop music, but it's like very much firmly in the zeitgeist, and there are lots of other musicians naming people like Pac and Coyote as like, this is the real, and that acknowledgement sort of shows that shift. Yeah,
and I feel like, because I was in the like Derek Trucks band, Soul Live, Robert Randolph sort of jam band era, which still had this firm blues basis.
Yeah.
And so it was this kind of interesting, like in 5 years, there's a generational shift of like the core music.
That's really interesting. I never thought about that shift, but you're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you see people around town obliterating it with much more of a jazz vocabulary than I feel like I had at that point.
Okay, so the big J comes in for little J around high school. I apologize.
That's right. That was
saying
good.
Those words out loud. And then at this point, you're still primarily playing piano, or had you learned drums by this point too?
Drums early in life. There's this toy drum kit that my dad had gotten for me. So it was just this, when I was probably like 5 or 4 or something, I was playing around on it. And then years later, there was like a middle school band class. I went to Carolina Friends School.
Dude, I teach there right now.
You teach there right now. That's awesome.
Did you go there for upper school too?
Oh yeah, I did the whole. I was a lifer.
Wow. Yeah. We might need to have a secondary interview talking about that. That's
totally.
So cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's sweet. I do wonder, like how everyone's doing, and
Okay, just 2 quick questions. When were you a student there?
I was a student there. I was born in 1993. I graduated in 2011.
Okay.
So that would have been.
So you had Jonathan McGovern? History?
Jonathan McGovern was there, not for history, but
For gym.
yeah, and I feel like there was this whole exactly for gym. Yeah.
Okay. What about Amelia Shull?
Yeah,
Art
Amelia,
teacher?
art teacher.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm not sure of too many other people who are still there.
Well, John Lepofsky was
So he's
my
head teacher now.
I know, he was my English teacher.
But he used to teach. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Wow. Yeah, those people are still being cool.
Yeah. And then Henry Walker was like a classic. I don't know if he's still teaching there.
Yeah, this is his last year.
Wow,
He
that
announced
is
retirement.
That's crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
So with this, and I apologize, folks. We're gonna get back to the music, but you just
Yeah,
hold your horses. This is an organic moment. He announced his retirement and then said, "I am gonna stay on campus through next year because it's the 60th anniversary of the school's founding."
Wow, yeah.
And so he's planning this huge, like basically year-long anniversary.
That's
for the
awesome.
school.
That's very Henry Walker.
It is,
to retire and then like almost unretire in
Yeah,
the next breath.
You're like,
yeah.
but not really.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. Didn't
Yeah.
expect that connection.
Totally.
Okay, so you're at friend's school.
Yeah, and there was
Drums, middle school
drums,
band.
middle school band. I brought my little kids kit to class essentially.
Heck
And
yeah.
it started with playing Hotel California and whatever that Pink Floyd song was. And then Another Brick in the Wall.
Yes.
Some of those. And then there was a high school band that I ended up in called Old 86.
Okay.
And yeah, that was when I really got to drumming in more of a real way. And then the combination of drums and keyboards became really insane. When I started this band, we were the Oblations, now we're just Oblations.
Okay.
With my buddy Daniel Fields, where he wrote this song. I was like, I could probably play drums and keys at the same time. I did the bass line on the keys. I played the drums with my left hand and my feet. And it worked just well enough that we turned it into a band.
So it's a duo.
And
He's
so-
on guitar?
Yeah, he's on guitar,
yeah.
but he's
Okay.
also a guitar maker and luthier.
Whoa.
So he like put split pickups in his bottom 3 strings and has that on a bass thing.
Nice.
So I'm doing drums and keys at the same time, and he's doing guitar and can
Bass.
get bass from it.
Dang.
And we had a horn section of Danny Abrams and Danny Gruen for several
Okay.
years, and just played second wind every month
Yeah,
and had
yeah.
insane jams.
That sounds really fun. Playing jazz stuff?
Playing our kind of weird funk, jazz,
Yeah.
blues, rock.
Just a big stew of your influences.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one kind of prog rock tin.
Okay.
But we would just go into kind of free jams
Yeah.
where time would become ephemeral, and yeah, it was fun.
I miss Second Wind. That was a
Yeah.
place for that sort of thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in 2017 I played at Second Wind maybe 40 times somehow. I like
Wow.
looked at my calendar and it was pretty stupid.
It's
yeah.
like almost once a week. Yeah.
I was
that's
living the
dope.
Carborough life.
That's right.
For sure.
Okay, so drums just sort of steadily picked up from high school, and now you're in multiple groups as drummer and keyboardist, right?
Yeah. I'm
Or not both
not
simultaneously.
both simultaneously.
besides
It gets confusing.
oblations. Sure.
Exactly.
So that's pretty rad. Do you find yourself as someone who has learned of, man, has heard many connections saying, man, we really need a drummer. We really need a keyboardist. Like two of the roles that are often in short supply. Do you find you are practically never out of work for those, or not in demand?
I would
right?
say, yeah, I find that I guess I'm kind of committed right now to all of the bands that I'm in.
see.
I like maxed out on my time.
You're not looking.
Yeah, but there's still odd weeks, It's sometimes you have super busy weeks, sometimes you have desperation weeks where you're like, what am I doing? And sending frantic booking emails.
Right.
And so what do you say? Do you find you're never out of work? I'm like, no, it's constantly working on it. But yeah.
Well, I guess I just mean it's good you're not another guitarist. No offense, guitarists.
Well, and
But-
guitarists lead a lot of bands around here. And it's nice being this kind of satellite member of a bunch of country and folk bands
Oh, okay.
where I can kind of, for their bigger gigs, if they want a keyboard player,
Yeah.
I joined in with several different groups.
Okay.
And so
Right
it's,
on.
it's fun.
So maybe before we get back to the music, can you list all the groups or
Yes.
projects you are actively engaged in?
Here we go. I apologize in advance to any mistakes that I make. So SunSp.t, I have to start from inward.
Sure.
SunSp.t's the solo thing. Oblations is the 2-man band with Daniel. Dream Root is like a jazz trio with me, Itai Corman, Theus Jones. T Gold is a folk electronic punk band now.
I'm listening.
Yeah.
That's rad.
And that's connected into Sleepy Cat Records, which is this Scarborough record label that essentially began to release T Gold's music. And then other people wanted to release their music through it, and it turned into this.
The 2 Jofis are on that, right?
My SunSp.t solo project.
All of SunSp.t is through Sleepy
Yeah,
Cat? Yeah.
ArtAttack wasn't through it, but from Psychical onward.
Cool.
And going forward as well. Yeah.
Nice.
Definitely locked in with Sleepy Cat.
Sweet.
And then XOXOK, play drums in that soul group.
How would you describe that? Soul?
Like soul. We went for atmospheric soul for a while, but we've also been doing some more cover gigs. It's I'm
I
trying
like that adjective, atmospheric. Like hearing Keenan sing is like there is a cloud you are now
definitely
sort of in. Okay.
Well, there's this initial idea of kind of a James Blake meets. I don't know. I'm always trying to do the Questlove thing in that group, and just like be the pocket, do some simple fills, kind of
It's a good drummer to emulate.
Yeah, for sure. And then Jelly Sissoko and Kairaba, the African dance band.
Oh, yeah.
That's the latest group that I'm in.
Cool.
And that's
playing
been
keys?
Playing keys.
Yeah.
There's this whole Yamaha DX marimba style that's locked into the Senegal music.
Huh.
And so I've been really learning.
Oh, that sounds so fun.
And it's made my playing in other groups better, just because you need confidence when there's all this drumming going on, and the drums are the melody, the instruments are the drums. You have to just know what you're doing, because we want to follow the singer so much in American music.
Right.
There's this idea of just kind of being your own pillar in the music.
Everyone is their own clique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I play with Country Soul Songbook, which is kind of a collective founded by Kamara Thomas and Kim Register, where it's country music, but by BIPOC and LGBTQ plus people, where it kind of features different artists. And so I'm part of the kind of house band conglomerate.
Okay. So this is a band that does shows.
This is a band that does shows and features artists to front the shows.
Gotcha. So you're just on deck for those featured artists?
For the keyboard role as a support thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cool. So I don't know if we got to double digits, but we got pretty close.
Yeah. And Turnabout Players, the video game jazz band, which I play drums for.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I've been lucky to see y'all play. Waiting on the next VGM jam sesh.
Yeah, it's coming, and I don't know if it's fully 100% locked in, but I do think on April, is it 28th? One of those last Sundays in April. I think we're doing one in Raleigh.
Okay,
at long last, we've
secured the spot.
We're coming back.
Sweet, awesome. Well, you might not have your demand met every week, but certainly sounds like you're a busy man keeping all of those active.
Well, in the solo project, part of that is also the infrastructure of being able to get solo gigs and not having to rehearse for solo gigs, because that's
a perk.
That's a thing.
Yeah, no one knows if you messed up.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I don't know. If you cough on your keyboard, they might be intentional.
But that happens. That's just life.
Short. Yeah. Right. He's just being real with us.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much. What do you want to play with us next?
That's a good question. That took it out of me. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, thank you, listeners, for trying to keep up. I might do one. Yeah, I'm going to kind of improvise around a tune called Guitartron from Jofi 2 that was based on the guitar mellotron sound in the Nord Electro that was on that SZA Doja Cat song, Kiss Me More. It's doing the little harpsichordy part.
Yeah. Okay. But I wondered about that name when I listened to that track. I'm like, is this something to do with Tron? The movie?
It's like mellotron sound, but it could be. It's instrumental tracks I find hard to name, and so I've just kind of given up at this point and just call them whatever seems to fit.
I think people are on board with that. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Again, you're listening to WXDU Durham, 88.7 FM, live in the studio with Joe MacPhail of SunSp.t, about to play Guitartron. Sweet. That was rad. You were pushing some buttons at the end there.
I pushed a few buttons at the end there, yeah.
Wow, that was really cool. So I'm curious about your writing process, and you said this was inspired by just a mellotron sound.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you go from hearing a sound, a tone you really like from a keyboard, and then, you know, composing something like this? Are you, yeah, I guess. Let me leave it open.
Yeah. Well, I feel like inspiration is not a hard thing to come by, but you have to be kind of willing and open to, you know, accept the flow of inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Being a conduit.
Yep. Or you play a sound for the first time that you're inspired by,
Right.
And then naturally you play something you like, and you kind of, you improvise your way around a piece. Like a lot of the recordings that I do are based on the primary improvisations or primary versions of a song, and then I kind of sculpt around that for better or for worse.
So it's sort of like a brainstorm stream of consciousness initially to get things on the page, and then
and throw away the ones I don't like and only keep the ones that I like.
Yeah.
And it's survival of the fittest
Sure,
far as the tunes are concerned.
Right.
But so I am a big fan of writing with sounds that I haven't heard before or haven't played before. It just helps with inspiration, and so that's all that was.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, maybe this is true of all instruments, but I feel like the electric keyboard especially lends itself to that sort of writing, because there is such a vast, spectrum of sounds that this one instrument can produce. And again, that can be said of many instruments, by the experts. They can make these sounds, that are far flung from one another. But yeah, I haven't heard someone talk about writing as driven by just like, oh, here is a sound that is novel or unique or calling something, and let's write based on this, as opposed to, an emotion or a story or a progression or some motive, like purpose sort of thing to it. That's really cool.
Well, and it is based on the emotion that the sound evokes from however I play it.
Fair.
But at the same time, that's however my particular fingers hit the sound.
Yeah.
On whatever, this is a semi-weighted keyboard. And so even that affects what I'll play or like how it feels.
Yeah.
But it is crazy keyboard technology these days. I remember it was doing okay in the mid-2000s, but it wasn't like all there yet. And now it's like anything you can generate with a computer, you can play on a keyboard.
Yeah.
So it's like infinite sounds. And then there's this keyboard called, what's it called? You can basically wiggle the notes now. And that's like the final level of keyboard technology.
Oh, like having a pitch bender?
But it's the key. You just wiggle the key to the right and the note goes up.
That's rad.
So that's like the final level of keyboard technology.
Yeah. They're like each a fret on a guitar.
Basically.
All of a sudden. Wow.
So yeah, they're starting to figure that out. So
Has the rapid change you're talking about in keyboard technology, has that been difficult to keep up with for you? Or I guess what has that been like? Have there been moments where you've thought, oh man, like I have to master this, or I have to get one of these to play what I'm now hearing other people do?
That's a good question. I think it's usually been based on my personal needs, where like for a while I wanted some sort of big bass sound, and then got a Moog keyboard, and that did that. Exactly. And talk about, being inspired by guitarists, and then having the pitch bend sound.
Yeah.
But I switched Nord generations from the Nord Electro 2 to the Nord Electro 6.
Okay.
And that was kind of the biggest significant change in, the acoustic piano sounds, basically.
Gotcha.
I'm not sponsored by anybody, but they're better now than they were. But in the context...
But if Nord wants to throw you some change, they can.
They can, but they probably won't, sadly. There's a whole thing where Corey Henry was mad because they used a video of him playing at NAMM for their channel that has millions of views, but then didn't cut Corey Henry in on the money from that, which, anyways, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, well, Joe MacPhail is playing a Nord right now, so
that's right.
He's doing free labor, free advertising Nord.
But to all keyboardists, Nord doesn't have to be the answer, because their prices went up. All keyboard prices went up, but it's also potentially not worth it. Don't be fooled.
Just by the higher price.
By the hype, yeah.
What are some of the better like budget keyboards?
I feel like the major, like the Yamaha and Roland, they just have so many ranges at this point.
Yeah.
And
whereas Nord it just starts higher.
It just starts higher, and they withhold the pitch bend. I don't have a pitch bend on this. It's
really?
I think of it as kind of the Apple of keyboards, where you need the dongle to access the pitch bend or whatever. Course. That's the
It's like, oh, this has all these different features. You just have to. It's like the micro transaction
basically
of your instrument.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But all of that to say that in a band context, the gains are like noticeable, but also kind of more minimal than in like a solo performance context.
Right.
Just because with guitars and everything, you only have so much frequencies to like poke out through. With the bass and drums, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Lot of tech behind that thing. So I want to shift gears a little bit. You talked about something upcoming, a release. Can you tell us what that is and what your timeline is for that next thing?
Yeah.
Unless it's real hush-hush, in which case, forget I said it.
No, it's not that hush-hush. It's there's a really nice piano at a local studio, and I've recorded a bunch of stuff with fake pianos essentially that are incredible. Like we're in the best generation of fake pianos. But I got a Durham Arts Council grant to record. You can basically do a big recording day on that piano. And so I'm just going to go in there and do as much as possible and then try to kind of drip release a piano track a month once it's all together.
Cool.
So that's the plan. That's the goal.
That sounds really fun. Again, motivated by a sound and what it evokes.
Yeah.
For your writing. Cool.
And also with my production is kind of specific, and as much as I am a songwriter, I'm realizing that the piano is kind of my like fundamental form that everything else grows from. And so this is my kind of singer-songwriter variation. Creating something a little more accessible maybe, or we'll see.
Okay, cool. And so do you have, is it just one day?
It's just one day, but I'm going to go crazy.
You're going to fill that day?
I'm just going to, do new tunes and then a bunch of songs that I've written for my own project and other projects, and just try and get as many good takes as I can. Then maybe just kind of do mixing and mastering myself for some of them, send it off to other people for others.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're not planning to overdub anything? Just piano? Yeah.
Performance capture.
Yeah.
I'm realizing that with all these bands I'm inspired by, like, The Roots, Derek Trucks band, I kind of naturally am better live than on a recording. Or I don't know, there's something about a live performance that I feel like
absolutely
I'm able to really express myself in a truer way. And so I'm interested in capturing that and seeing how that works out.
Yeah, I can attest seeing you with, what is her name? The saxophonist you were playing with.
Oh, Serena Wiley.
Serena Wiley, yes. At Missy
Lanes.
Missy Lanes.
Absolutely. Well, and Serena was in Dream Root, so we go back. We've been playing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, since like 2017 or something.
Okay, but now Dream Root is trio.
Now Dream Root's trio.
Okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
But just to say, your live presence was remarkable. Yeah, it was a good show.
Well, and it was fun. It was like, slipping into an old pair of shoes is a weird way to put it when you're like making music with humans, No, but it was this really natural. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Familiarity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sweet. So let's see. What else do I want to talk about? I know what I want to talk about. I want you to read this PSA. We're on WXDU 88.7 FM. I'm in the studio with Joe MacPhail from SunSp.t, and he's about to read his very first PSA on WXDU.
That's right. This is the Independent Animal Rescue. Let me start over again. The Independent Animal Rescue is a nonprofit group in the Triangle that works to provide homes for hundreds of unwanted cats and dogs each year. IAR is run primarily by committed individuals from the community who volunteer their time to help homeless animals and to keep support programs functioning. They are in need of foster parents and volunteers. To learn about how you can help, visit https://animalrescue.net.
Yeah, reading those, beautifully done. Well done. Reading those website titles sometimes, I'm like, come on, folks, just Google IAR. Like, why am I going to read this?
Yeah.
With all the punctuation. Yeah, that was rad. Thank you. So one last topic I wanted to talk about, and then would love you to continue playing a little bit, is what, if any, message could you share from your experience to aspiring musicians or active musicians who might be, for one reason or another, disillusioned with either the financial prospects or the feeling of being lost in a sea of Spotify playlists? You you're here as an example of someone who is a working musician, actively enrolled in many different bands and many different kinds of income streams, it sounds like, with relation to music specifically. And yeah, so I'm wondering if you can just sort of expound on any aspect of that direction.
Yeah, I guess I'll start somewhat negatively.
Please.
Just as far as it is a mess, as far as the business models that we're kind of dealing with right now, where I had the part of why I've been doing my own recordings this whole time is I have a concept that the recording business model is based on a thing that's kind of ineffective in the modern era, where it, with CD sales not being what they were, the main artists, the major artists that have labels that have deals with Spotify, still do well. But the actual business model of, spending thousands of dollars in a recording studio and expecting to recoup that just isn't there anymore. And it seems like touring, like longer tours after the pandemic, is like in that same zone at this point. Since the costs went up. There's a podcast I listened to where they said that attendance was down 30% across the board, at least in 2022 or 2023.
For just like all live music?
Yeah, for like all live music venue shows. And so it's kind of, there's different ways to do it. And I think the grassroots local approach makes a lot of sense to me. Once again, all of these kind of jam bandy groups succeeded because of their grassroots approach.
Right.
And this area does have a lot of events, and there's these kind of non-traditional music venues that like have, any kind of business model behind them, whether it's that they're like a brewery selling beers to, other places. Like for the aspiring musician, I would say, think about the business model of the place that you're playing and whether, basically, if they're not making enough money when you're playing music, they're not gonna have music for more than half a year. Because it's as hard as it is to be a musician, it's probably harder to be a business that has live music in a certain way, or it's at least similarly hard.
Yeah.
But I also think, I don't know, I had a personal moment where I realized I didn't want to self-define as a musician first, but I wanted to self-define as a human first who is a musician.
Got you.
And I think that like being a human and like living life is crucially important to like staying sane in the music, in the context of all of what's happening with music.
Yeah.
Because if you self-define as a musician and get too worried about what other musicians think about you, you can get torn down very easily. Yeah. Because I have a whole other philosophy where I don't necessarily trust what musicians hear because they're hearing it from the context of what they are into at that moment. So it's a very skewed perception. Yeah. So I trust random people who aren't musicians, or who, I don't want to say aren't musicians because we're all musicians, but who don't self-define as musicians. I kind of trust that viewpoint more in some ways when I'm out in the world.
Yeah, it's got a different set of biases or filters than your I spend all my days thinking about music kind of person. Well,
sure. Well, it's even like I don't know, there's a way to perform for people and a way to perform towards musicians. And I don't know. I personally try to go more towards the performing for people thing.
You heard it here first. Joe MacPhail believes musicians are not people.
Musicians are not people. Musicians are robots. No, but musicians can feel like robots because we're trying to be all of the best musicians at once, which if you think about how egotistical, because each of these musicians was only themselves. Right. And so if we want to be 5 of the best musicians in the world, that's literally impossible. Sure. And at that point, you do feel less human and more like a robot trying to climb some summit.
I'm conjuring memories of shows where I look around and, I found myself just sort of arms crossed and nodding, like squinting at the band, and then I look around and there's a bunch of people doing that, and I'm like, oh, dang it, we're all musicians, aren't we?
It happens. Yeah. But that can be its own cute. Like I'm not.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a lovely experience,
exactly.
Community. But it is, yeah, as far as like playing for, again, people, as opposed to this crowd of like more discerning people who might appreciate what you're doing in a totally different and valuable way.
Yeah.
You know, I can see why one might be a little more fun or tangibly.
Yeah, and it's almost this concept of like music as folk music versus music as like a conservatory trained, like, I don't know, there's all these expectations that come with music, especially from the conservatory systems.
Yeah.
That can be hard for people to unlearn. But I think, yeah, thinking of music as like a public good that you're doing like as an act of service. There's the Carolina Friends School coming through. Is a
still repping.
Yeah, but that's my that's my advice for musicians. Basically, is there's a good there's this guy who was really, what was his name? Colonel Bruce Hampton has a good quote.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was
musician, not a colonel. He
was a musician, but he was like this kind of father mentor figure to the, like, it's because I'm a Derek Trucks nut. Like Derek Trucks and D'Angelo are my North Stars as far as music goes.
Some good stars.
Yeah. And Colonel Bruce was the guy who turned Derek on to like Indian music and whatnot.
Oh, okay, word.
But he said to take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. Which I think in some ways goes hand in hand with like it almost sounds like the opposite of what I just said, but it isn't. It's perfectly aligned with like, you're a human living life. And then when you're on stage, you're focused on what you are doing, but not the ego of it all. And the like self-defined musician, I have to be this, I have to be that of it all.
Yeah, and the concern or fixation on your perception or other people's perception of you.
Yeah,
you know?
Because we are working in broken business models. And so you kind of have to have that idea in order to like find your way into different opportunities and not be stuck on the path that no longer works.
Exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Works.
Or that's no longer effective for the majority of people. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I know you said, I think this contradicts that, but I feel like sometimes being a human requires holding multiple things that don't necessarily seem like they coincide, but
yeah, and it requires get humbled all the time by life. So that's it's part of being human.
Yeah, I love that you said that's the Friends School coming through.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so sweet. All right, you want to play another piece for us to sort of wrap things up, and then we can debrief it a little before you head out.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'll do.
What are you thinking?
It might turn into a medley, or I don't know. I'll do the Scottish hip hop song. That's
the Scottish hip hop song.
Yeah,
was that on one of the records?
It's not on one of the records.
Ooh.
No.
New stuff, folks.
Exclusive. Yeah, I've got the Scottish hip hop song, the bluegrass hip hop song. There's like a whole little. Yeah.
Okay, you can't see it, but Joe is putting on a fake red beard.
That's right.
Right now.
Yeah, I got the kilt going.
That's right. All right, folks, you're listening to WXDU Durham 88.7 FM. This is Out There a Minute, our jazz show, and Joe MacPhail of SunSp.t is in the studio about to play whatever he's going to play, and it's going to be awesome. Hope you hear something that you like. Hot dog. That was kicking.
I didn't quite expect. Sometimes I just go in and then I'm like, that was a medley of 3 tongue twister keyboard songs.
Yes. The fingers were twisting around. Okay, so the first one sounded Scottish, right? Okay.
And
I'm not sure I would have pegged that if you hadn't, anchored me to think that. But
sure.
Okay, and then what else did you throw in there?
Yeah. So there's that's the Scottish hip hop one, inspired by the singer Julie Fallish.
Okay.
And then the bluegrass. I play it on a synthesizer usually, so it didn't come out quite the same. But there's a bluegrass like electronic tune essentially, where it has this really edgy synth tone, and so I played the piano version of that.
Yeah.
And then I did. I don't have a name for it yet, but it's inspired by the band Covet. There's this guitarist, Yvette Young, I think is her last name, but she's incredible.
Yes.
And it sounds bebop on the piano, but it was inspired by the kind of prog rock there's kind of like, I don't know, sometimes prog rock's a little crazy, but I really like Yvette's tone.
Yeah.
And like classical... She kind of plays the guitar like a classical keyboardist in a certain way.
Okay.
From like the choices and the melodies. And so the idea of through composing, I don't know, I improvise melodies so much. I'm trying to get a little more into composing different melodies.
Yeah, I mean that last tune had a really strong melody. I really liked it. Okay.
Good. Yeah, and I'm also working them up for the recording session. So.
Oh yeah, those are gonna rip on a giant. So it's like a full grand piano?
It's a full grand piano.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Can't wait to hear that one. Do you have a title in mind for that? Really? Or you said you were going to do it single by single.
Single by single. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't have to come up with the names until the month.
Just track titles, which is notoriously easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. The easiest part of writing an instrumental song is,
Wow. Well, that was amazing. Folks, you are listening to WXDU Durham. We just heard Joe MacPhail of SunSp.t playing 3 tunes, Scottish hip-hop. Did the other one have a name?
It's really Scottish hip-hop, bluegrass. No,
they don't have names. You can't put them in a category. So stop trying.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming in the studio today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Any message you want to leave our listeners with, or promo, promo, shameless? You want to do?
There's Joe MacPhailmusic.com has information regarding all of the things, and I try to keep it updated.
And that's MacPhail. Joe MacPhail.
That's right, MacPhail. And I try to create music that has some sort of feeling of uplift, where maybe like you are in a kind of like a hard time, and kind of in that process of like redemption, and so that kind of feeling is something that I just want to, I don't know, put out there. We got it, guys. This year has been crazy for everyone I know. So everyone, stay safe, meditate, do what you can.
And listen to some good piano music, folks, like you've already done today. So good for you. 1 checkbox. Yeah,
that's right.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joe. We are going to pivot back to our good friend Kamasi Washington. He wrote us in. He's going to write us out. Hope you come back and see us sometime. And folks, look up Joe MacPhail on his website and see when he's playing next. Catch him live. All right, see you, Joe.
All right, see ya.